So that's how it began. That was around about 2002, and it took a few years because then you had to negotiate, the nature of that contract, and so that the arrangement is that the universities, isn't able to exploit it. That the BBC still have the commercial rights on it when it's material which belongs to the BBC, but a lot of the stuff in Delia's archive, in terms of the tape recordings, is freelance projects that she was doing, and the original collection, it's got all these paper documents, scores and memos and letters and things, and then there was 267 tapes, and they were primarily 10.5-inch reels, then 7-inch, and then like various other smaller spools. And out of that 267, not all of it is by Delia. So around 70 of them.
How can you tell? Did they actually sort of little sound bites at the beginning say this is a piece by whoever?
No, that was the thing. So one of the big sort of detective work that's gone into it is that we went down to Mark's place. He's down in Sussex, with a friend and colleague, Simon Smith, who's a music technician. So Simon and I went down, and with Mark, we did sort of like just an initial inventory, just very brief, just get a sense of what was in there. And if there was something in which was very clearly a BBC project that was missing from the BBC archives, then Mark passed that back onto the BBC. So, for example, the original Doctor Who tapes from 1963 are not in Delia's archive at Manchester. They're at they're now at Perivale. So it was like listening to this, and the tapes were in various stages of storage. So some of them were in the original cases. A lot of them were just like loose spools, and many of them had labels on them. But over time, being stashed away in various places that Delia had lived in, not in environmentally controlled conditions, sometimes up in her attic, or wherever, those labels have fallen off and they were at the bottom of it. So when they were passed on to Mark from Clive and Brian Hodgson, Brian had a listen, and he'd written down, so his handwriting is on some of the boxes where he's identified certain things, but they were passed over in big cardboard crates which had been used to store boxes of breakfast cereal. So that's what it was. I think that's got lost in translation, where people have heard it as, like she was stuffing an individual reel into a packet of Cocoa Pops or something. It wasn't, it wasn't like that. They were like the big crate. And at the bottom of those crates were all these labels which have fallen off. Some of them were still on in places, but there were so many. And then some of the labels that were written onto the tapes, it was very clear that the contents were not what the label claimed to be, because she would often recycle tapes, record fresh stuff on it, So you're trying to put all that together. So you've got in there, out of that 267, round about 70 odd of them is stuff by other people. And you listen to that, and it's stuff that is recognisable by other people. So you go, that's by Karlheinz Stockhausen. That's Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. There's some Penderecki, Mozart, Bach, Ray Davies and the Kinks.
Really?
Some tracks by one of the I think most interesting things is an album by Yusuf Lateef from 1960 called Eastern Sounds, and it's him exploring sort of different musical traditions from Africa and the Middle East in a modern jazz sort of setting. And she's done transfers, so some of it will be off-air recordings of concerts, and some of it is like transfers of LPs.
So this is like we used to do as teenagers, just record from the radio cassettes. This was her way of actually recording music that she was into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is that I've said this before, but sometimes when you put one of those tapes on and you would hear that it was whoever it might be, the Kinks, and you got, it's a shame. It's one less thing that might have been that we didn't know that she did. Of course, as any archivist will say, is everything is interesting in an archive, because why did they put that in there? What was it about it that she got excited about, and maybe she was using or sampling, so that there's some Mozart material which essentially she samples and loops and and is pitch shifting it and so on. So that stuff's fascinating. And actually, that Inside Out feature that Stuart Maconie did, when Stuart came over to do that and listen to some of the pieces in the archive, Stuart recognised a track by Can that was in there. To my shame, I'm not a big Can aficionado, And
Stuart
on playback, and Stuart went, "That's Cam." So it's quite an eclectic mix that she's got. She's got in there that she's listening to. Then you've got there were some BBC projects which were in there, and so like I was saying, like the makeup material for Blue Veils and Golden Sands. One of the last things she did at the BBC before she left in 1973 is a documentary series about Tutankhamun's Egypt, and there's a lot of music from that. And for that, she sampled a recording of one of the silver trumpets that was found in the tomb. So it's an old, recording that was put out there, I think by the BBC actually. Archive recordings of historic significance. So Alexander Graham Bell talking on the telephone for the first time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of them was this recording of, these trumpets from the tomb. And so she sampled that and played around with that for the theme tune for that piece. So that that's in there. That piece that you talked earlier, the Noah piece, that was a BBC schools radio dramatization of the story of Noah. So it's the sort of thing, I don't know if you two remember, when we were at school, that thing said, right, we've all got to tune in at 10:30. We've got to be sat there waiting for
it was live.
Yeah. And the clock's ticking down. To go, and it would be like how we used to live or something like that, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So be that, and so one of them was she'd done the music for this school's dramatization, the story of Noah, and that particular track, it's a dance from that play, that audio play, and she did piece of music for the different animals going on the ark. So there's one for the elephants, and she does this wonderful synthesized. Sound.
That sounded good.
It's not as good as your ring modulated Dalek voice, Phil. That was
brilliant.
That was amazing. Yeah. So I mean, I'll play a little bit of that. Yeah, just play. Hopefully, you can hear this.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's on a children's radio drama program about Noah. The way that was described, they played it to it was Paul Hartnell from Orbital when they announced the archive, which was 2008. The BBC did a little piece on it, and I supplied them with various extracts from the archive just to give them like a sense of the range of things that were in there. So there was a bit of Delia transforming her voice for Blue Veils and Golden Sands. There was some Nicol Williamson doing Hamlet's father's ghost from a stage production of Hamlet at the Roundhouse in London in the late 1960s, which they made into a film with Anthony Hopkins, and then this percussion track. And there was also in there a recording of Delia saying, "I forget about this. This is for interest only."
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
And they'd spliced that in just before that thing that we've just heard, the percussion track. So a lot of people assumed that was her talking about that track, and that was just Delia just going casually, just here's just something I've just tossed off, it might be.
Yeah.
And actually, it's actually her talking about a cue for the Tutankhamun's Egypt project. So when that went out, there was an electronic music forum called Create Digital Music. It's based in the United States, I think. And somebody on there posted that they thought that this was a hoax, that there was no possible way that Delia Derbyshire could have done something like that. That track that we,
because it sounds so techno.
Yeah, and of course the thing about it is that there's about 13 minutes of that percussion track. So it's a tape of all the component parts of that piece, and they're there in isolation. When you hear the final mix of it, it's so low down in the mix, it doesn't really stand out that much. So that piece had actually been on a record that was put out at the time to showcase, I can't remember it off the top of my head whether it was KPM or not, but basically it was to showcase the potential of electronic music and early synths with like Zinofiev's equipment. And that was on there. So it's been in circulation all that time, but you don't notice it in the mix. I think what I find interesting about that is that, we hear that now and we go like, like mind's blown. And for Delia, it's part of something, something else.
She wasn't to know what she was doing. She did.
I don't think she's there like thinking, this is gonna blast blast minds. But I love the fact that a Skills radio broadcast of a story from the Bible is smuggling in these squelching dance beats, in 1971.
Amazing.
Anyway, we've gone off on a mile there, so
it's all good stuff.